Who has the toughest schedule in college football in 2025? Well, we're going to give you the top 10 toughest schedules here in this video. And I will say there aren't any schedules this year that are just like absolutely brutal. You know, like we saw last year with Florida, which that schedule turned out to be really not as bad as we thought. They didn't, we thought Florida State was going to be a lot better. We thought UCF was going to be better. Some of the other teams they played in the SEC. So their schedule, again, looking at in the preseason, we thought this might be the toughest schedule of all time. And again, it turned out to not be that tough. And so that's one of the tricky things, trying to figure out how good all the opponents are going to be when you do this. But I use my own formula to figure out which schedules are the toughest. I don't look at any other sites or anything. I'm sure there have been other metrics out there that have ranked the schedules. I don't think the FPI is out yet, so we haven't seen those schedule rankings. So this is based off of the way I would rank the schedules, of the formula that I use. We add up all the opponents and we get the numbers. So let's jump right in. Number 10, and again, these schedules are tough, but I feel like there aren't any schedules. There were probably a few schedules last year that were tougher than any of the schedules from this year. But we'll start with number 10. All right, so number 10 is going to be USC. USC with the number 10 toughest schedule. And it's funny because I've heard USC fans talk about how the schedule's a lot easier this year, and it is. And again, I'm going back to what I said last year. There were some really, really tough schedules, probably because of the whole conference realignment thing. And a lot of these non-conference schedules are done in advance. And I don't know. I think some teams probably wound up with tougher schedules than they wanted last year. But you see Missouri State and Georgia Southern, of course. You've got a couple of easier games on there. And they've even got Purdue out of the Big Ten. They got the easiest team, more than likely, out of the Big Ten, or in the Big Ten. But then you look at the rest of the schedule. They've got to play Oregon. That's a top-tier team. They've got to play Notre Dame. That's a top-tier team. Both of those games on the road, by the way. Iowa could be a tricky game. Nebraska on the road. Illinois on the road. We've got them as a Tier 2 team. That's going to be a really tough one. Michigan is in there as well, a team that should be a lot better this year. So, again, this is not a horrible schedule, but there aren't a ton of really, really tough schedules this year. And this one is, relative to the other schedules across college football, one of the tougher schedules. So USC coming in at number 10. Number 9 is going to be Arkansas. So Arkansas, you see right away, just like USC, a couple of easier opponents, Alabama, A&M, and Arkansas State. But what makes the schedule tough for Arkansas? First of all, they play in the SEC. And, we'll have that debate on what's the best conference. Well, if you can argue that the SEC is not the best conference anymore at the top. Maybe the Big Ten has passed them. But if you're going by like the deepest conference, I still think clearly the SEC is the deepest conference. There aren't many easy wins in the SEC. Maybe Mississippi State, and they do get to play them. But you look at the rest of the SEC games, you've got Ole Miss, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Auburn, LSU, Texas, and Missouri. All of those games will be tough. And then you go back to the non-conference. They've got Memphis on the road. Memphis, a quality group of 5 team. And then, of course, they're going to play Notre Dame. Notre Dame, very good team. This is a top-tier team. So, again, one of the tougher schedules in the SEC, I guess. Although I would say it's probably not horrible. They do play Texas. They don't have to play Georgia. So it's probably more of an average SEC schedule. But when you add in Notre Dame and Memphis, yes, it is a very tough schedule for Arkansas. Next, we've got number 8. That is UCLA. You've got Utah there right out of the gate. That's a big non-conference game. We expect Utah to be improved. I don't think they'll be great this year, but they'll be better. And then you've got UNLV, a really good team, a group of 5 team. So a tough non-conference schedule. And even New Mexico is not horrible. They don't get an FCS opponent. So that already makes this schedule pretty tough. Then you look at the Big Ten schedule. Northwestern, Penn State, Michigan State, Maryland, Indiana. That stretch is not horrible, but Penn State is in there, obviously. And then at the end, you got Nebraska. Should be pretty good. You got Ohio State, a top-tier team. Washington should be decent. USC should be pretty good. So, again, a lot of tough games here on this schedule. If you're UCLA, you probably don't want to have to play Utah this year. You'd rather have another easier game, especially when you've got UNLV, who was probably not expected to be a too tough of a game, but now you do have that game as well. So a pretty tough schedule here for UCLA. They come in at number 8. Next, we've got Ohio State. Ohio State at number 7. You got Texas in the non-conference. Obviously, that's going to make this schedule a lot tougher. We're talking about a Tier 1 team in the Longhorns. Then you look at who they play in the Big Ten. And again, this is probably not, especially conference-wise, not as tough of a schedule as last year. but it's still pretty tough. And again, you got Texas in there, but you got to play Illinois on the road. This is a Tier 2 team. You got to play Penn State, a top-tier team. Yeah, it's going to be a challenging schedule. Of course, Michigan, trying to get over the hump, trying to beat Michigan. That'll be a tough one. Yeah, pretty tough schedule, but what gets Ohio State onto this list is that Texas game. That Texas game in the non-conference is why Ohio State is on this list, and that's why they made the top 10. All right, number 6 is Syracuse. Syracuse had a pretty favorable schedule last year. This year, it's going to be tough. You got to play Tennessee, and you've got to play Notre Dame. So 2 really tough games in the non-conference. Tennessee, neutral site game to kick off the season, then Notre Dame late in the year on the road. Those 2 games make this schedule really tough. They got to play Clemson and Miami and SMU, arguably the top 3 teams. Let's keep it going. Let's go to Georgia Tech, maybe the top 4 teams in the ACC, and they play all 4 of them on the road. So this is a very tough schedule. We are getting into the tougher schedules now. The one thing that, I guess benefits them is they do get to play UConn and Colgate. They get Duke, Pitt, North Carolina, Boston College at home. Those won't be horrible games, but this is a very tough schedule. A lot of people are high on Syracuse. Maybe they'll be a decent team, but when you look at this schedule, I think it's hard to see this team having really a great season. This thing is tough. This is a very tough schedule, and like I said, we're getting into the tougher schedules now. Let's get to number 5. That's Oklahoma. So Oklahoma's going to play Michigan in the non-conference. That'll be their big non-conference game. But this is really just about who they play in the SEC. They don't get to play Mississippi State. They don't get to play Kentucky. Talking about 2 of the worst teams, or 2 of the teams towards the bottom. They don't get to play Vanderbilt. Looking at this, they don't even get to play Arkansas. I mean, this is just a brutal schedule in the SEC. You got to play Auburn. We've got them as a Tier 3 team. Texas, a Tier 1 team. South Carolina, a Tier 2 team. Ole Miss, Tier 2. Tennessee, Tier 2. Alabama, Tier 2. Missouri, Tier 3. LSU, Tier 2. So they're playing almost all of the... They don't play Georgia. I mean, that's, I guess, the one positive when you look at their SEC schedule. But they're playing almost all of the tougher teams in the SEC. This is a really tough schedule in the SEC. Now, they do benefit from Illinois State, Temple, and Kent State, and that's why this is not maybe in the top 3, because that will pull the ranking down a little bit. But still, very tough schedule for Oklahoma. Again, they had it last year in the SEC. They're going to have it again this year. That's going to be the big challenge for them. And again, this year they got Michigan in the non-conference. So really probably a tougher schedule overall for Oklahoma this year. Let's go to number 4 now. That is Iowa. They're going to play Iowa State in the non-conference. Obviously a tough game there. Then you look at their Big Ten schedule. It is very tough. You got to play Penn State and you got to play Oregon, 2 of the top teams. They don't get many easy games in the Big Ten either. Rutgers, maybe their easiest game. Rutgers, Wisconsin, perhaps. Both those games are on the road. I mean, there's just really no easy wins here on the schedule for Iowa in the Big Ten. I guess you benefit from not having to play Ohio State, not having to play Michigan. It could be worse, but still, it's a tough Big Ten schedule. And then you've got a very tough game against Iowa State on the road in the non-conference. Yes, Iowa does have a very tough schedule. And, really the difference probably with Iowa and Oklahoma probably has more tougher games, but Oklahoma had 3 easier games. Iowa's only got 2. So when we do the math, we do the formula, it's probably why Iowa's a little bit ahead. Because when I'm just looking at these schedules, I would actually say Oklahoma's might be tougher. But again, with our formula, Iowa comes out at number 4. Number 3 is Purdue. Purdue has a really tough schedule. That's not going to do them any favors because they're not expected to be very good this year. You got Notre Dame in the non-conference on the road, obviously tough. You look at their conference schedule. Illinois, USC, Minnesota going to be tough. You got Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana. Just a lot of tough games in the Big Ten. You've got a top-tier team in Notre Dame in the non-conference. It's a really tough schedule, and it's hard to see Purdue really making much improvement in terms of wins and losses in 2025. Let's move on to number 2. That is Mississippi State, another team that's going to, I think, struggle to get to have a much better record this year. They've got to play Arizona State in the non-conference. So you're talking about one of the top teams, I think the top team out of the Big 12, a playoff team from last year. That game obviously going to be very, very tough. Northern Illinois is a respectable group of 5 team. We know what they're capable of. So not a cakewalk. Even Southern Miss on the road. Who knows about that game? That could be a tough one. Then you look at their schedule in the SEC. Tennessee, Texas A&M, Florida, Texas, Arkansas, Georgia, Missouri, Ole Miss. Just absolutely brutal. They play both Texas and Georgia. They don't get to play Kentucky. They don't get to play Vanderbilt. I mean, it's just a brutal schedule in the SEC. Plus, you add in Arizona State in the non-conference. This one is number 2, though. It's not number 1. Number 1 schedule is actually Wisconsin. So Wisconsin with the toughest schedule in all of college football. You've got Miami of Ohio, a very respectable team out of the MAC. You've got Alabama in the non-conference on the road. Their easiest Big Ten game, their easiest conference game is probably Maryland. I would say that's the easiest game. And then, above that, you've got maybe Washington. I mean, this is a really tough schedule. It's going to be hard for Wisconsin to find wins. And that's why their projected record was 5-7. I look at this Wisconsin team. I don't think, that's probably a 5-7 team. But then when you look at the actual schedule, you can see how 5-7 is a possibility. Again, Alabama, Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana, Minnesota. You're already at 7 losses, not even counting Washington and Illinois, which will be tough. This is the toughest schedule in all of college football based off of our formula. I tend to agree. Just looking at it, it is very, very tough. They're just not going to be easy wins. Outside of Middle Tennessee, really no easy wins. Even Miami of Ohio could be tough. So I'm looking at this Wisconsin schedule as the toughest schedule in all of college football in 2025. Would love to get your thoughts on these schedules. Maybe there's a team that I left off that you think has a really tough schedule. Give me your comments down below.